I was teaching an introductory French class at a community college. A student, a man in his 40s, was getting visibly angry about the concept of grammatical gender. He slammed his book on the table and said, "This is ridiculous. Why is a chair feminine, but a book is masculine? It's a chair. It doesn't have parts. This is just a political thing to confuse people, isn't it?" He was genuinely convinced that assigning gender to inanimate objects was a recent, politically motivated conspiracy rather than a fundamental aspect of many of the world's languages that has existed for centuries. My company sent an American manager to our Tokyo office. During his first big presentation, he tried to build rapport by using a series of baseball idioms. He told the Japanese team they needed to step up to the plate, avoid striking out, and hit a home run for the company. He was met with complete silence and polite, confused smiles. Later, he complained to me, "I don't get it. They just stared at me. It's like they don't understand basic business talk." He thought baseball metaphors were a universal language of corporate success. I witnessed an American tourist in Rome arguing with his car's GPS. The automated voice was pronouncing the Italian street names with a perfect Italian accent like Via del Corso. He kept shouting at his phone, "No, it's Via del Corso. Speak English?" He thought the GPS was malfunctioning or set to the wrong language, unable to grasp that it was correctly pronouncing a foreign name. He ended up turning it off, complaining that it was a stupid, broken piece of junk for not anglicizing the local geography for him. An American I met at a hostel in Scotland was fascinated by the local accent. He asked a man from Glasgow, "So how long did it take you to learn to talk like that? Is there like a school for it?" The Scottish man, confused, replied, "I've been talking like this my whole life." The American nodded thoughtfully and said, "Wow, that's some serious dedication to a character. You guys are amazing actors." He honestly believed the accent was a performance, not a native dialect. My American roommate in Berlin had a complete meltdown at an ATM. The default screen was in German, and instead of looking for the clearly marked British flag icon for English, he started panicking. He was convinced it was a sophisticated scamming machine designed to trick foreigners. He called me whispering, "It's trying to talk to me in German. I think it's going to eat my card. What do I do?" I had to walk him through the process of pressing the single button that would solve his entire problem. A substitute teacher in my high school history class, who was from the Midwest, had a student named Javier. On the first day, she read the roll and called him Javier. He politely corrected her. "It's Javier." She smiled and said, "Not anymore. We're in America, so we use American pronunciations. It'll be easier for everyone." She called him Javier for the entire semester, believing she was helping him assimilate by erasing the sound of his own name. I was in a Spanish immersion program with a girl from California who consistently struggled. One day, she wanted to say she was hot from the sun. Instead of saying, "Tengo calor," she confidently told a group of locals, "Estoy caliente." After a moment of awkward silence, they started laughing. She got incredibly offended, not realizing she had just announced she was sexually aroused. She later complained, "Spanish is so stupid. How is anyone supposed to know the difference? It's a trick question." At my old job, two of my colleagues, both from Puerto Rico, would often chat in Spanish during their coffee breaks. Their American supervisor pulled them into her office and gave them a formal warning for creating an exclusionary environment. She told them, "It is unprofessional to speak a language that I can't understand. For all I know, you could be plotting against the company or making fun of me. All conversations in this office must be in English from now on." While watching the World Cup in a bar in London, an American tourist saw the Portuguese word for soccer, futebol, on the screen. He laughed and pointed it out to his friends, saying, "Look at that! They don't even know how to spell football. That's adorable. He was completely certain that the American English term was the original correct word, and that every other variation around the world was just a charming, uneducated mistake. An American executive visiting our office in Shanghai was given a tour of a local museum. When shown ancient scrolls with beautiful Chinese calligraphy, he seemed puzzled. He asked the guide, "I get the art, it's very pretty. But what did they use for their actual alphabet? You know, for writing letters and documents? How did they type before they had real letters?" He could not comprehend that the characters were the writing system, believing them to be purely decorative. I was at a party with a friend from Sweden who speaks English so perfectly she's often mistaken for being American. An actual American at the party found out she was Swedish and was flabbergasted. He told her, "Your English is like perfect. You don't even have an accent. My God, your parents must have spent a fortune on tutors to get rid of it." The idea that someone could learn a language so well that they sounded native was beyond him. He saw it as the erasure of a flaw. An American tourist in a small Welsh village saw a road sign for Lanfair Pwlgwingil Goger, Ichwen Drob, Willanticilio Gogogoch. He stopped his car in the middle of the road to take a picture, laughing hysterically. He then walked into a local shop and said to the owner, "All right, you got me. That sign is hilarious. Who came up with that joke? But seriously, what's the real name of this town?" He refused to believe it was a real name, insisting it was a prank for tourists. I worked with an American IT specialist who was sent to our Paris office to set up new computers. He was completely baffled by the AZERTY keyboard layout. He emailed our global help desk with the subject, "Urgent. All French keyboards are defective." He claimed they were jumbled and unusable. Before anyone could reply, he tried to fix one by prying off the keys with a screwdriver to rearrange them into the QWERTY format, permanently damaging the laptop. In a restaurant in southern Germany, an American tourist confidently ordered a latte. The waiter, understanding the Italian word for milk, brought him a tall glass of steamed milk. The American became irate. "Coffee, I wanted coffee." "A latte, L-A-T-T. It's the same in every language," he shouted. The waiter tried to explain that he should have ordered a Milch Kaffee, but the man just accused the restaurant of trying to rip him off by serving him overpriced milk. An American couple was watching the critically acclaimed Korean film Parasite in a cinema. The film was, of course, in Korean, with English subtitles. Halfway through, the husband whispered to his wife, loud enough for several rows to hear, "This is taking forever. I wish they'd just dub it. Reading a movie is the dumbest thing I've ever had to do. It's like homework." He felt that the original language was an inconvenience that should have been removed for his viewing pleasure. My American friend was trying to learn Italian for a trip. He got frustrated with plurals. The teacher explained that the plural of cappuccino is cappuccini. He argued, "But that's not logical. The rule in English is you add an S. It should be cappuccinos. Why do you guys have to make it so complicated? It's like you're changing the whole word." He was genuinely annoyed that Italian grammar didn't follow English rules. I overheard an American tourist at the Acropolis in Athens staring at the ancient Greek inscriptions on the Parthenon. He asked his tour guide, "So this is all before English existed, right? What did people do before there were, real words to express things? Did they just point at stuff?" He seemed to believe that English was the final, evolved form of communication, and that anything prior was primitive grunting. An American called our company's help desk in Mexico City. The automated phone menu started in Spanish, para español, oprima número uno. Before it could get to the English option, he started shouting, "Customer service, speak to a human," into the receiver. He did this 3 times before hanging up, and later complaining to his boss that our company was unprofessional for not having an English-speaking phone system. A tourist in Russia was looking at a sign written in the Cyrillic alphabet. He said to his son, "Look at that. It's like they took our alphabet and just tried to make it look weird. The R is backwards and the N looks like an H. It's so inefficient. They should just switch to the normal alphabet so everyone can read it." He perceived it not as a different system, but a deliberately obtuse and inferior version of his own. An American manager was leading a virtual meeting with a global team. He had colleagues from Korea, Vietnam, and Japan. At the end of the call, he said, "I just want to give a shout out to my team members who speak Asian. I know it's a tough language, but you're all doing great." He had grouped 3 completely distinct languages and cultures into one monolithic imaginary language called Asian. A tourist in Beijing was adamant that the city's name was Peking. When a local guide gently corrected him, explaining that Beijing is the modern romanization of the Mandarin name, the tourist scoffed, "No, I'm sorry, but it's Peking. It says so on all the old maps. You can't just change the name of a city that's been around for centuries. That's just confusing for the rest of us." An American student in my international business class was confused when our professor from the UK mentioned a meeting was scheduled for a fortnight from today. The student raised his hand and asked, "Is that like a British slang term for something? Can you just use a real word, like 2 weeks, so we can all understand what you're talking about?" He was certain the professor was using obscure, made-up jargon. I was on a resort in the Dominican Republic. An American family was sitting by the pool, and 2 staff members were having a quiet conversation in Spanish nearby. The mother gathered her children and said to her husband, just loud enough for the staff to hear, "I don't like that. It makes me nervous when they speak their language around us. It feels secretive." She perceived their native tongue as a threat. During a video conference, a German colleague shared his screen, and the date in the corner of his monitor was displayed as 11:05/2024. An American manager immediately stopped him. "Hans, your computer is wrong. It's November, not May. You need to get your IT department to fix that. We can't have people working with incorrect information." He then tried to explain the universal MMDD YYY format to a room full of Europeans. An American tourist in Naples, Italy, gave a cheerful thumbs up to a driver who stopped to let him cross the road. The driver immediately became enraged, shouting and gesticulating wildly. The American turned to his wife, completely bewildered, and said, "What is with these people? You try to be nice, and they act like you threatened their family. Just a total psycho." He had no idea he'd just used a gesture equivalent to the middle finger. An American who had just moved to a diverse neighborhood in Houston complained to me, "It's getting ridiculous. I have to press 1 for English every time I call the pharmacy. I live in America. I shouldn't have to select my own country's language as an option. They should be the ones learning the language of the country they chose to live in." I was a waiter in a fine dining French restaurant. An American customer pointed to pommes frites on the menu and asked what it was. I explained, "It is a dish of fried potatoes." He looked at me, annoyed, and said, "So, French fries. They're called French fries. Why do you have to write it in French? It's pretentious. Just call them what they are." He was offended by the use of the native language for the dish's name. An American was watching a BBC News broadcast where a correspondent in Berlin signed off her report by saying a brief closing remark in German. The American viewer shook his head and said to his wife, "What a show-off. We all know she's in Germany. She doesn't have to prove it by speaking gibberish. It's just rude to the people watching at home who don't speak that." My cousin bought a high-end digital camera while on vacation in Tokyo. He was furious when he opened the box and discovered the default language on the camera's menu system was Japanese. He spent an hour randomly pressing buttons before complaining, "This is a global brand. They should know that Americans are their biggest customers. All electronics should be preset to English by default. It's the international standard. An American exchange student in my university in India was trying to learn Hindi. He became incredibly frustrated with the script, Devanagari. He told our instructor, "I don't understand the point of this. The letters are all so curvy and complicated, and the line on top just gets in the way. The English alphabet is so much more efficient and straightforward. This feels like you're just drawing pictures instead of writing." I was on a train in Switzerland, and the announcements were made sequentially in German, French, Italian, and then English. After the first two languages, an American sitting across from me sighed loudly and said to his wife, "This is so inefficient. Why don't they just say it in English once? Everyone understands English. We could have been moving 10 minutes ago if they weren't catering to all these tiny little languages." An American tourist in Thailand was trying to order food from a street vendor who spoke no English. He pulled out his phone, opened Google Translate and typed "no spicy." He then held the phone up and shouted the English words "no spicy" at the vendor, as if the app was a magic amplifier and not a translator. He couldn't understand why the vendor was just looking at the Thai script on the screen and not his mouth. My American boss was reviewing a contract from a Quebec-based company. He was annoyed that the document was in French. He called their legal department and said, "Hi, you sent us your contract, but it's in Canadian. Can you please send the American version so my team can actually read it?" He not only misidentified the language, but also referred to English as American. A student in my linguistics class argued that silent letters in languages like French were a design flaw. He said, "Words should be spelled how they sound. In English, for the most part, they are. All those extra letters in French are just a waste of ink and time. It's like they're trying to make their language difficult to learn on purpose." The professor just stared at him, utterly speechless.